Hey Puggies, it's Donna here. We do talk about suicide in this episode, which I know can be distressing. So if you need resources or support, please go to beyondblue.org, or for 24-hour free counselling in Australia, the number for Lifeline is 13 11 14. Please take care of yourself and don't hesitate to ask for help if you need it.
I want to say it's not just veterinarians, it's the vet staff, it's the
Mhm.
reception, it's the vet nurses, it's the vet technician. Anyone who gets in that, I want to say to them that it's a fantastic profession that they've chosen, and it's a wonderful profession to be involved in. But there are pressures
Oh, yes.
at the moment, and there's a bit of a crisis happening, and we actually want to be able to address that. So that's why we set up Sophie's Legacy. Here, sadly, in September 2021, Sophie took her life.
Hello, humans and puggies. Welcome to the Pug Life Show, brought to you by Pug Parties, because your pug deserves to be the best dressed at the porty, and you can check out the Pugs and Stripes collection at pugparties.com. I'm your host, Donna, and with me are my puggy co-hosts, Rosie and Kenji, with their rescue foster brother, Buster. Today we're diving into a heartfelt conversation about Sophie's Legacy. It's an Australian foundation born from love, loss, and a fierce drive to protect the people who care for our fur babies. Sophie Putland was a passionate vet who adored animals, but behind the scenes, she faced pressures no one should face. After her tragic passing in 2021, her family started a movement to save the people who save our animals by improving mental health and work environments within the veterinary profession. If you've ever had a vet calm your nerves while you're caring for your fur baby, if your pug has been comforted, stitched up, or saved by a clinic team who went above and beyond, then this episode is for you. We'll talk about what's really going on in the veterinary world, what Sophie's Legacy is doing to help, and how small acts of kindness from parents just like you can make a big difference. But before we zoom in, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. You'll find the link in the show notes, so you can be the first to know when the next episode lands and get access to lots more pugtastic goodies. Thank you so much for joining me on the Pug Life Show.
Donna, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you about Sophie's Legacy.
Oh, it's wonderful. As I was mentioning offline just before, I've only been made aware of Sophie's Legacy, like the full breadth of it, a couple of months ago when Chelsea was on the show talking about, she's a vet nurse, and talking about the many varied things that we have to deal with veterinary wise when it comes to pugs, because your foundation is quite important to her. And she explained to me the story behind the posters that we now see in waiting rooms in vets and vet specialists around Australia. So we will get to that. But first, can you please introduce yourself? Give us a little bit about yourself and also about Sophie's Legacy.
Okay. So my name's Gary Putland, and so I am Sophie's dad. Sophie was our daughter, and we have my wife, and she had two other brothers. Our kids were really close in both age, but also close in terms of relationship as well. In fact, both Ollie and Sophie were in Melbourne for the last few years of her life, and so they were very close. And if I describe Sophie as being a fabulous daughter. She loved animals. We actually saw that from the very start in many respects. And then around about 12, 13, she began to want to go riding on horses. And so ever since that time, she's had a love of horses. And I can talk about an incident when she was at uni, actually studying veterinary science, and she said to me, "Dad, can you pay for this little baby foal that I'm going to get, and he's going to be a racehorse?"
Oh.
And I said, "Sophie, you don't need to." She said, Dad, I really want to do this. So Dad paid the money, thinking that I was going to be at the Melbourne Cup in about
I was about to say.
top hat. And in fact, she looked after him when he grew up. He grew up in near the Barossa Valley in South Australia. And she looked after him. She even gelded him.
Oh.
I went up there a few times. I thought he was a bit of a wild young lad. I'm glad he got gelded, because at one stage I thought he was going to go for the fence.
Oh.
But then he actually did start racing. Sophie knew a lot of people within the racing industry. And so we got him, I think the first race that he ran, I put money on him and he ran second to last. Believe it or not, the second race, he actually won.
Oh,
And
wow.
did I have money on him?
That
No.
that's what you
Um,
get.
so Sophie was really proud of that. But sadly, in his third run, they decided to run him a bit longer and he bled on the lungs. And of course, that when they
Oh,
do that, he had to retire out to pasture. So that was the end of that. So Sophie, yeah, so she really loved horses. And since that time has had horses in Victoria that she used for her downtime. I describe Sophie as I describe most veterinarians, I think, as, intelligent, hardworking, very compassionate about animals, would do
yes.
anything for animals, highly functioning, but she was having to manage mental health issues. And
Mm,
so in some respects, and there is a study that was done by the Australian Veterinary Association where they said 66% of the people reported in that survey that they were either seeking professional help for their mental health. And so, you began to realize that this is an industry which, whilst it's the most fantastic industry for people who love animals to be part of. And in fact, I do want to say have every bit of respect for the people who take on being a veterinarian. In fact, and I want to say it's not just veterinarians, it's the vet staff, it's the reception,
mhm.
it's the vet nurses, it's the vet technician, anyone who gets in that. I want to say to them that it's a fantastic profession that they've chosen and it's a wonderful profession to be involved in. But there are pressures
Oh,
at the
yes.
moment, and there's a bit of a crisis happening, and we actually want to be able to address that. So that's why we set up Sophie's Legacy. Because sadly, in September 2021, Sophie took her life. At the time, we understood she was managing her mental health really quite well.
Mm,
And she told her flatmate she was really happy with what was happening. But then I think what I've learnt about mental health is that sometimes you can be going on really well like that and then just
mhm.
fall off the cliff. And whatever those triggers are, they can happen really quickly. And unfortunately, they did at this time. And after Sophie passed away, I did say, because I knew she loved the people that she worked with, she loved being a veterinarian. And we kind of want to set up Sophie's Legacy to honour Sophie and to honour her colleagues. And also, we didn't want other families to have to go through what we did. So, Sophie's Legacy was really created out of an idea that we wanted to help people in the veterinary industry. We didn't know where to start, although, mind you, we had often talked to Sophie about some of the issues she was grappling with. So, we decided to do an online survey. We got about 600 responses back.
It's
Three key things
amazing.
that key things they said to us was client abuse was one of the most major things that contributed towards their poor mental health. And they said to us, please do a national education campaign to educate the people, the general public, about the challenges we face on a day-to-day basis and to be respectful towards us. So that's actually where we started with Sophie's Legacy. And then they also said we have to work long hours. We're not that well paid. By the way, in South Australia, the award rate for veterinarians first year out is $63,000.
Mm.
That's incredible to think that,
The level
that
of education that they have to go through
yeah,
to then not be I mean, somebody said to me that a vet has to learn more than a general practitioner, a doctor that we see at our local clinic, yet the pay disparity is double. Like, a doctor gets double what a vet does when they first come out?
yeah. Well, in fact, they get more. I'm not sure whether it's double, but they certainly
Mm,
get more. So it was things like, low pay, low esteem, and long hours, because there is a vet workforce shortage at the moment,
yes.
which often meant that they would have to, and Sophie did this a number of times, she would finish a shift and then have to start a shift pretty well straight away,
Mhm.
because if she didn't, they'd have to close the clinic.
Yeah.
And so it was all these pressures that built up within the industry. So that was it. So it was the client abuse, and it was the, work hours and
Yeah.
conditions under which they worked. The third thing that came out was toxic workplaces. And so this is a really interesting one, and I'm very interested in this. Sophie said to me about 12 months before she passed away, she said, Dad, I'm going to do a leadership course because I can see things can be done differently within the practice that I'm working in at the moment.
Mm.
And it's a bit of a sad thing that I didn't have time to do it with her. She wanted me to do it with her. So I wish I had done that now. But, she could see that there was change required and wanted to do something about it.
Mm.
And maybe that's what drives me a little bit as well. But so leadership and culture, how do you improve practices so that people feel that they can flourish is kind of like our third thing that we wanted to do there. So Sophie's legacy kind of like started out listening to the veterinary community and wanting to respond to what they said they needed to be done in order for them to have a brighter future.
And as I was saying beforehand, I'm a pug parent, had pugs for over 20 years, and you spend a lot of time with your vet and your vet specialist. And I know that I have really good relationships with mine. I've had different ones over the years, but even I, hands up, one of my pugs, Winston, we had 12 months worth of hospitalisation. And
Oh,
towards the end, I was really scared and really stressed. And I know that I was probably not as nice as or as understanding as I could have been as to my poor specialist giving me some pretty crappy news. And I was probably the third or fourth person noting that they were a specialist hospital where really bad cases go. I was probably not the first person that he'd actually given that news to that day.
yeah.
And I reckon they probably would have reacted the same way as I had. And so, as I mentioned, the first time I was aware of the Sophie's Legacy posters was when I walked into my local vet and I saw it up on the wall. And my initial thought was, that is really sad. We have to remind people not to be horrible. I was going to say a swear word then. And then I sort of sat there and I thought, sort of after that, I went, you know what? I have been in this place and I have forgotten not to be that particular individual. So yeah, we actually do need to remind sometimes the bleedingly obvious, like the person that is giving you that bad news, whatever the bad news is,
Mm.
doesn't deserve you taking out your stress or emotion or anything else like that on them. And it's probably a good segue into that campaign. So probably the first, I think it was the first one, We Are Human, and then it was the Lost campaign.
Great.
And so I am sure that everybody listening who lives in Australia has probably seen one of those posters, which I think is amazing. Just so can you tell us a story around how you got to such a simple poster that has such a really good message, and it just takes you 2 seconds to look at it to remind you that, no, it's not okay.
Yeah. We started out, so as I said, after the survey, one of the first things we wanted to do was this national education campaign. And at that time, it was only my wife and Sophie's brothers, Ollie and Tom. And Ollie had this idea that he said, when you go on a plane, you actually go online and you have to tick a box to say that you're not carrying dangerous goods. So you're thinking about the other people that you're actually on the plane with. He said, we should do something here so that when people go to a clinic, they will get an app that they can look at while they're in the reception and they can go, I'm hearing about the challenges that are happening in the industry. I'm hearing that client abuse is triggered often by costs.
Mm.
Um, but I am going to be respectful and I'm going to tick a box down the bottom to say I will be respectful in all of my communications. We tried that in 4 clinics and they said, no, it's not going to work. It's going to fail. So we had to
Bless
come up
them
with
for
something.
telling you.
Yeah, that was actually good. It was great that we got told that it wasn't going to work. So we decided to get some professional help. We went to a very good marketing company here in South Australia and we gave them the problem and we asked them to come up with what they call a creative brief. So they came up with it was actually a 3-phase project. We're going to do a campaign over 3 years. And they took that problem of how do you communicate about this problem being honest, direct, at the same time you're not blaming the clients. And how do you do that? So they came up with this concept, well, we're only human. So the people that we're trying to work with, when we've got pets, that is the veterinarian and the vet staff, if we don't work with them in a way that's collaborative and working towards the same goal, we're not going to get the best outcome for our pets.
Yeah.
So that was really the concept behind that. We wanted to put it into every clinic in Australia. I won't tell you how much that was going to cost us, but we were fortunate enough to get some of the people within the industry, the veterinary industry, were very good at supporting us in what we're trying to do, because a lot of people were kind of go, this is an issue that's been sitting under the radar in the veterinary industry for at least, and look, the data we use around the suicide rates in the veterinary industry is data that's around about, was reported back in 2008. And we've actually asked the peak body in the industry, the Australian Veterinary Association, because they did say to us, please don't use that data, it's old. And we said, well, that's okay, we won't, but give us the most latest data you've got.
Yes.
And they said they couldn't. And to be fair to them, it's the fact that this is actually a difficult problem, because the data's got to come from coroners' courts
And
and all this kind of thing. So it's been
privacy, health,
difficult to
it's
get.
awful.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess in some respects we kind of wanted to get this poster out into every clinic. We wanted to be there so people could actually, if they're sitting in the reception, go, oh, I wonder what this is all about. And they can scan a QR code and go in and find more about Sophie's legacy. But what's actually happened is that many of the vet staff in the vet clinics use the poster to talk to people about the challenges and the issues that a lot of the clients don't realise. And I think many clients have this perception that being a vet nurse or a veterinarian is this wonderful job where you have all these little puppies that you're actually giving vaccinations to and
Tickles
things like
on the
that. They
belly.
don't understand that there can be very critical incidents that can happen that require enormous expertise.
Yes.
But sadly, after all that work, they might not be able to save the pet, or it might be it's a euthanasia, and they do a lot more of that than I think people think. So it was really about trying to make sure that people understood that being a veterinarian does have its positives. They do
Yeah.
play with young pups, but it also has a whole lot of other things that are really challenging emotionally, and that can be very challenging for the people within the practices, particularly when people lash out at them. The one of the largest things is the bills that people
Mhm.
pay. And look, if you have a pet that's got to stay in ICU,
Oh,
they
yes.
have to have an operation, a serious operation, you know, you are paying the true cost of delivering those services because there's no Medicare for pets. And it's kind of like interesting. A lot of people don't know that, and yet they
Mhm.
equate, I think, the way what they pay for human health to animal health.
I get really frustrated when I see posts online where people are saying, "My vet bill's $90, but my trip to my local doctor, which is a bulk billing clinic, was 45." It's like, understand you're comparing apples with oranges.
So, yeah, so one of the things that we're going to be looking at in the next few campaigns is starting to look at how do we get this message across that owning a pet actually has responsibilities in terms, and particularly financial responsibilities, which when you buy the young pup, that might not happen for another 5 or 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
And so how do you make sure people are thinking about and planning for the unforeseen operation intensive care, which actually could be very costly?
Mm.
So it's one of the things that we're thinking about, what can we do around that? But the We're Only Human campaign was quite successful. In fact, Show Pony won a national award for that. We actually won a state award. The state award was the Suicide Prevention Australia's
Mm.
most outstanding contribution towards reducing suicide. So we won that in 2024, which was a lovely fillip for us. And so in some respects, the We're Only Human campaign, and by the way, the poster went out to about 4,150 clinics. Not everyone did get it. I don't know what happened, got derailed on the way,
Yeah.
but the majority of clinics actually did get it, and many of them are using it as a way of actually talking about the issues around mental health and the challenges that they have within the day-to-day operation of a vet clinic.
No, as I said, all of the multitudes of specialists and vet that I have to go to, every single one of them have that poster in the waiting room and also in all of their clinic rooms. And as I said, for me, simple, confronting, but a really good reminder that, you know what, it's actually it's okay to be upset. it's not okay to take that out on the person who's actually trying their damnedest. And I always equate my pugs as living with toddlers. I've never had children, but a toddler, the only way they can communicate is through sort of noise and their facial expressions. That's my pugs for their entire life. We have to interpret. There's no way of, they can't tell you what's wrong. And and I just sort of think I could never be a vet ever. Like, I love my pugs. I could not do what vets do every day. It is just absolutely insane. So I definitely, my hats are off to all the staff, not just the vets themselves. So, and I tell you what, I probably should be sending them a bunch of flowers every time I have
Yeah.
to take one of my pugs in. They behave much better for the vets than they do for me, that's for sure, the little buggers.
Yeah.
Um, I
And as you know, Donna, we had two Frenchies. Unfortunately, they both
yes.
passed away this year. But like you say, they're most fantastic dogs, I have to say. And even though they did have some health issues, we worked with our veterinarians, and we got to know veterinarians really, really well, as I think
Mm.
you did as well. And they would do anything. In fact, I will say to you that when Molly passed away, and it was very sudden, and they were trying to resuscitate her
Oh.
at the time, and I sadly couldn't. When we went in to say goodbye, Brooke, the veterinarian who was on charge there, actually came in and cried with us.
Mm.
And so it just shows you that these veterinarians are absolutely in it for the right reason.
Yeah.
And it's so important for people to understand that, they're the ones delivering the message around costs and things like that.
Mm.
But really what they would want the best outcome for your pet. There's no doubt about that. And so, it's kind of like, and I think with the We're Only Human campaign, we've kind of made a good impact, but there's so much more that we could do. And so
Mhm.
this year we are we're actually waiting for some corporate sponsorship, hopefully to help us out here. But we're wanting to run another campaign called Words Matter.
Mhm.
And the Words Matter campaign is actually saying what you just said then. If you get a great service, go back to them and
Thank you.
tell them what a wonderful, just tell them thank you.
Mm.
Buy some chocolates, buy some flowers, buy some champagne. Just say thank you, because I think that would make a huge difference to their day-to-day operation to balance out some of those negative stuff. So if we come out with many, veterinarians that are overweight and stuff like that, I'm happy with that, because that will mean that they're being valued. And I think that's the other thing, the We're in the Human campaign. I think what's come out of that from us, from a veterinarian community, is that they feel like we've valued them. They feel like we've given them a voice. They
Mm.
feel like and we're giving them a bit of agency now to be able to stand up and say when someone says something negative, and to do it in a
Oh,
nice
don't
way, but say, did you realize this, this, and this? So, so I think that's the case. And we are getting many clinics now are coming back to us and saying, look, the We're Only Human campaign post is a bit tatty. It's faded. Can we get another one?
yeah,
So it's a campaign that we think has longevity much more than
absolutely.
we ever thought initially.
No, I completely agree. And the companion campaign, if that's the right word, the Lost campaign, as I said, I didn't see it here in Melbourne. I believe it was only really in Adelaide. I did see the news articles and it brought a tear to my eye because whenever I see a lost poster for somebody's dog, it brings a tear to my eye. To then think that that poster was actually there to remind people of the impact that just words can have such an impact on another person. And they are so easy to throw out and incredibly difficult to take back once you've actually done it. So, can you quickly, because I think I'm about to choke up, talk about the Lost campaign?
Yeah, yeah. So the We're Only Human campaign was designed to be an in-clinic campaign.
Mm.
The Lost campaign was designed to be much more out in the community campaign. Originally, what we wanted to do was to get a whole lot of people to go to parks where dogs would be playing and things like that, and hand them out. So the Lost campaign was originally designed so that we could get a large number of signatures, so we could actually do our second thing we wanted to do in Sophie's legacy, and that is be able to get into Parliament and get changes around the working conditions for the people who work in this industry, because we want them to flourish. We want them to have a brighter future. And so it's really important for us to be able to do that. And the loss campaign, like you say, is a very emotional one because, and when it was first presented to us, it was, we almost decided we might not do it because it was just so damned emotional.
Imagine.
But it was such a powerful message. And the way we did it was, well, the show pony did this, but the way we did this was to actually have a poster of Sophie with 3 pups. You know, that picture of veterinarians having a great time with 3 little pups, and you'd go, and we just had the one word lost.
Oh.
And so people would go, "Oh my God, some lost puppies. I'm going to go up and read about that." And they'd actually read about the fact that we're losing veterinarians, the high suicide rate. And so it actually kind of like shocked a lot of people.
Mm.
So we actually did a national campaign. So it was actually national, Donna.
Ah,
Um,
I
yeah,
obviously missed it with all the
so,
lockdowns.
well, I mean, that's the thing with this, isn't it? To get out to the whole community can be a challenge at times.
Mm.
So we decided to do a national campaign where we actually had people, you had to be going on a train early in the morning on this particular day. So we did it in Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane. In Darwin, we did it at the Mindil markets actually, because there was no real
Right.
point about doing a train there. We did that as well. So we were handing out leaflets. The leaflets actually had a little QR code that people could go on and actually sign up.
Mhm,
We thought, as I said, our goal was to actually get at least 10,000 signatures. We thought it would take us 6 to 12 months potentially to do that.
mhm.
We had the job done less than 2 months because
Amazing.
we think it was a very effective campaign and very powerful in terms of the message we were trying to get across. So so that was kind of like, as I said, the first campaign was in clinic. The
Mm.
second campaign was kind of like, let's get out to the general public. And then the third, the words matter, I think it's gonna go back to the in clinic. And then that we might do another one the year after that goes back out into the general population, because it is, while we made an impact, it is there's an enormous amount of work still to be done, I think, to
Mm.
just get this across the general community about the veterinary crisis that's happening at the moment.
And they're just I mean, as a pug parent, I'm sure dog parents as well, but as a pug parent, if I'm not in my vet at least once a month, that's actually a really good month for me, to be
Yes.
honest. So they are so integral in your parenting life that how could you treat someone poorly and expect them to continue to care for your dog without being affected by that? So, I think the campaigns are definitely well, for me, they definitely did the job.
Yeah.
And whenever I talk to somebody else who's sort of seen the posters like me and just sort of gone, "Oh, isn't that interesting?" But hasn't taken the next step, now hence the reason I wanted you to come onto the podcast, because I think everyone should be aware, regardless of whether they're going to donate to your cause or not, they should still be aware that absolutely their words do matter. And it's just as easy to say thank you as it is to say whatever nasty thing you're about to say because you're not happy.
Mm.
But the campaigns, they aren't the only things. I had noticed that you do training and education on the website.
So, what we would do with training and education is that we would work with other organisations. I think Sophie's Legacy's decided, although we've got a new board, I mean, that's another story in itself, that we had an organisation last year that looked at Sophie's Legacy and said, "You guys done most fantastic stuff, but you've got to burn people out if you don't set yourself up as a proper organisation." So we've just appointed a skills-based board. We've just appointed our first executive officer who can help us actually run
Manage
projects,
massive
get
workload.
things done, because we are, sadly, we're burning some of our people out, including
Mm,
our family. So that's important we don't do that. So, yeah, so I guess in some respects, what we're trying to do here is to make sure that Sophie's Legacy, its impact goes for a longer period of time.
mm.
And of course, we're interested in making sure that, wherever we can have an impact, we actually want to be able to do that. I was going to make a point too, if you don't mind.
No, please.
You talked about, we talk about this concept of the human animal bond. And, 20, 30 years ago, the human animal bond wasn't as strong
Oh,
as it is now.
very
And so,
different.
so we think that's another reason why this has become quite a significant issue. On top of that, now we've got 70% of Australian households that own
Yeah.
pets.
Yes.
That's gone up substantively. So the other pressure that is happening within the veterinary industry at the moment is there's not enough vets, there's not enough practices. And so you might have to wait on it. I hear that's happening in human health as well. But as I understand it, if the stats are right, there's about 2,000 animals per veterinarian versus about 200 human people for each human doctor. So it's a significant number of additional amount of pressures that
Mm.
just simply by the fact that there's a huge demand out there at the moment for this.
No, absolutely. That is staggering, the difference.
Mm,
And I completely agree. I've on a number of my podcasts, I talk about the fact that when I grew up in Tasmania in a small town, and I grew up with hunting dogs. So they were working animals. They were treated very well, but they had a very distinct
yeah.
relationship to the family and to the working environment. So both within my immediate family and extended family around the farms. And then I watched Milo and Otis and said, "I am having a pug." And my entire family looked at me and went, "A what?" And I'm like, like little Otis, really cute, little squishy up. And of course, they all looked at me as I was a moron because, of course, to them, you don't. That's not even a dog. Like that's and so I was when I first got Fat Dog, my first pug, and brought him home and showed everyone. I was home for Christmas leave from the Navy, and admittedly by that point in time, my dad no longer had hunting dogs. He'd sort of retired. But even he looked at Fat Dog and said, "Yeah, you know what? For a squished up little thing, he's not too bad." Like, I think Fat Dog really sold the personality side of being a pet owner. But I still have arguments with my dad today about the way dogs should behave and be treated, and the way I treat my pugs. Like, they've just gone through a pet nutrition consultation and we're changing their diet to help. And my dad's just, I'm telling him on the phone about all these amazing changes. And he's like, "It's a dog. You feed it some meat and some kibble and I'm like, "Dad, it's just not the same. We know a lot more now than we did 20 years ago." And I think sometimes that clashes the old idea of what the way dogs and pets are meant to be looked after and the more educated way, because we've just done more
Well,
research.
I'm gonna guess, Donna, that I suspect the dogs might sleep on your bed.
No, actually, the one thing they don't do is sleep on the bed, but the only reason is our bed's quite high and we're always worried that it's just
Yeah,
gonna
they
take
jump off.
one roll and we'll be rushing back to the pet hospital. But they're currently sleeping in the office bed, which has a hot water bottle to keep them warm.
Yeah.
And their other bed, which they do sleep in the most, has a sheepskin. So, believe me, they
Well,
really don't miss out on
yeah,
much.
yeah. And, well, our dogs actually did sleep on our bed, and people kept on saying, "How can you bear the snoring?" Um, with yeah,
My partner
without the
snores as well, so,
oh,
like,
yeah.
it's a property.
Yeah. But again, coming back to the fact that, many of us have better mental health because of
Yeah,
our pets being healthy. It's one of the things that I don't know if you've ever heard of the Sick as a Dog podcast. That was really one of the first things that kicked this off was a
yeah.
brilliant podcast by Caroline Winter, who is an award-winning journalist, and she did this podcast. What came out of that for me was the insight that the Australian government and the Australian population doesn't realise what contribution financially, emotionally,
Mhm.
that this industry brings to the Australian community. And it's one of the reasons why we want to go into Parliament now and actually say this industry is a private industry. It's in a bit of a crisis. It needs a bit of a lift. We need government to come in and actually support it and to get it back on track. And so governments, we believe, have a responsibility, particularly when we've got one of the highest suicide rates of any profession,
Yes.
to actually, get in there and actually be helping us out.
Mm. No, agreed. And it's one of my soapbox things is that whilst legislation in Australia still has pets as the equivalent of chattel, then you are always going to have people who will not treat their pets like sentient beings. And so and sometimes it's really difficult to have a conversation with somebody about the people who care for our pets. Yes, we do pay a lot of money for it, but they're doing a really tough job, and treating them like chattel actually doesn't help. It's I don't like working with pug rescue. It's hard enough seeing pugs come in that have been abused, usually neglected, thankfully less abused these days. But whether it's mental or physical, it's I don't know how vets do it. Like what is it? One vet dies every 12 weeks. It didn't surprise me when I saw those numbers. It really did not. Like, I've seen some awful things during my time in the Navy, and I did it for 15 years and I had to get out of it. Like, these people are doing it every day. Like, how are we not, yes, I think the word is possibly ashamed.
Yeah. Well, again, that's why, as we've talked about, what would be
Mm.
great is for us to actually go in there and give them a pat on the back for the great work they're doing, because, ultimately they're there for the right reason. They're
Yeah.
there for the right reason. But it has its challenges. And when you have a job that's challenging like that, you just want people to feel like they're valued,
Yeah.
feel like they're valued from both the community, from within the business that they're working within. And I think once they do that, you're going to get the best out of them.
Oh,
But
yes.
but I get, what we heard in our first survey was there was a lot of negativity around that. And I'll be honest with you, we're dealing with an issue on social media at the moment, and I'm
Yes.
absolutely astounded at the very negative comments and very uninformed, if I might say so, very uninformed comments that are being made by people about veterinarians who are not in the industry and yet have a perception around the industry that's actually not right at all.
Assumptions, the mother of all.
Yeah.
And that is that, like, it's, as I said, it just ignorance, which is why I think your campaigns are such a great way of being able to, at least, if nothing else, make a stop and go, "Yeah, I've done that. And maybe I probably should have." Nobody likes being treated like dirt. So,
No, no.
um,
And it's not, and as you
irrespective
were
of
saying,
reason.
it's not hard to
No.
actually go, "Hey, thank you. You did a
Yep.
fantastic job. I'm really appreciative of that. And, here's a box of chocolates." I know when we lost Molly, we took a bunch of flowers to the vet clinic because they were just so, and they knew Molly pretty well as well. For them, that was actually a specialist hospital. I know in the normal vet clinic, when one of the vet nurses heard that Molly had passed away, she actually went home.
Oh.
She was really sad about it. So, yeah. So that's why I think, these are people, they're in it for the right reasons. They're delivering the highest quality health service for our pets,
Mm.
but people are just not prepared to pay, I think. And it's not all the time. It's when you get the ICU or the
Mm.
surgery, that's the expensive stuff, because your pet, if they don't get that, they may not survive.
Yes. No, and it is. And I like, a couple of episodes ago when we had Chelsea, the vet nurse, on for 2 episodes, we actually ran through the life of a pug, puppy, adolescent, adult, senior, and geriatric, and we just sort of we laid out, it's an episode I wanted to do for a long time. I've had a number of pugs now, so I know that when they get to sort of senior age, if they're not losing teeth, I've done a really, really good job, but they're always rescues. So, of course, you know that they're going to lose teeth. So I know that when they have to go in for a dental, I'm looking at $1,000 to $1,500. But if it's the first time you've ever had a dog of any sort, to go in and find out that to get the teeth cleaned, it's going to cost you $1,000. That is, and you don't have pet insurance, which a lot of people don't, because pet insurance, I think, still has a bit of a bad rep. Then you're then having to find that money or just not do it, which
Mm.
then brings on feelings of guilt and it's this horrible vicious cycle, and somebody ends up copping it, and it's usually the first person that's that's within your array. So it was actually the reason why we did the podcast episode, was so that we could say, hey, if you've got a pug, wherever they sort of come to your family in that cycle, these are the things that you need to make sure that you've got money stashed away for, because, and especially as they get older, it's just, they're like us. They just, unfortunately, their little bodies break down and things go wrong. And if you decide to adopt a rescue, then they then come with unknown health issues that, like for Andrew and I, we just know we've always had rescues, so we know that we've always got to have a bank account set aside just for that, because it'll always. Last year was the pug IVET year, so Rosie had to have a corneal transplant and Kenji had to have a little cyst on his eye taken out, and that was, I'm happy to say, or unhappy to say, that was $6,000 that we
Mhm.
forked out over 6 months. Could we have not done it? Rosie had to have that surgery. Otherwise, it would have been awful.
Yeah,
There's
and
just
look, I think, a number of the vet clinics would actually try and give you options if there were options available as
mm,
well. Yeah, look, the price issue is one that we wanna try and grapple with. How do you talk to people when you buy that pup that you might not have a problem for 4 or 5 years,
yeah,
but as they get older, it's more likely that you're going to have some crisis, health crisis, that's going to demand the highest quality care, and, that has to be paid for.
yeah.
We did get a number of veterinarians say to us that a lot of people actually wanna get discounts, or they think they should be getting discounts. If they don't get that, that's when they throw out, "Well, you're not really in this for the animals, are you? You're just in it for the money." And,
Oh,
in fact, I get that very often. So, I mean, I think that's the thing that we learnt, and I did hear it from Sophie a little bit as well, that, these kind of negative comments are very prevalent. So they would get them often, many times during the day for some of
mm,
these clinics, and it would actually, upset them. And so I know during these campaigns, we've had some clinics that have written to us and said, "Oh, can we have a few more posters?" I had a number of staff in the clinic yesterday all out the back crying because of some abuse that had actually been hurled at them unnecessarily, and it does impact them. So because they're only human,
yes,
and that's
yes.
why that poster, I think, is actually very powerful.
No, I absolutely agree. Just, and you do an amazing job, like, one family tackling such a massive challenge. I won't say it's a problem, even though it is. I suppose it is a problem, but it is a challenge. Like, you are actually trying to find solutions
Yeah,
to it that nobody's ever done before, because I just don't think anyone's really thought about it. It's something that you do whenever your dog is sick, as opposed to something that you do every day.
yeah. I know I told you a story before we came on, Donna, that
Please share.
we after Sophie passed away, we have a colleague, I'll name her, Di Rogowski. Di, the most fantastic volunteer for Sophie's legacy, but she's got skin in the game. Her son is a veterinarian, and her daughter-in-law is a veterinarian. And it was talking to Cameron after, oh, sorry, I probably shouldn't mention his name, but talking to C after, sadly, one of his colleagues had passed away, had took her life as well. And he said to me, we've got to stop just going to these funerals and saying thoughts and prayers and going back to our normal job and doing nothing about it. So if we do that, nothing is going to change. So that kind of like sparked me to go, I want to do this because Sophie could see change could really improve the industry. I want to do it because I want to honour her.
Mm,
Um, and I want to do it because I want to honour the other people that she worked with. She had an incredible network within the veterinary industry. Even though she only worked in Adelaide and Melbourne, she was known much wider than that. In fact, had written some papers and very interested in, things like fecal transplants and stuff like that, which was
mm.
really some quite innovative, as I understand, innovative at the time procedures that she was experimenting with. So yeah, so Sophie was actually quite well known, and so look, we just we didn't want this to be something that nothing was going to come out of the fact that we've lost our beautiful daughter.
No, and to follow on with that, because that is just incredible, you've actually got a number of fundraising events on the horizon. all of them because the podcast will come out this weekend. So could you talk about the gala and also pause for Sophie calendar?
Okay. So the gala, let me talk about that first. This is our first gala.
Ah.
We are running it in Adelaide. So we're very happy to have people to come across from Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane. And in fact, we do have some of our sponsors who are not based in Adelaide that will be coming to the gala. So this is happening on October the 18th.
Yeah.
We have designed this to be an event for veterinarians and vet staff. The reason we've done that is we actually did run one, but the first time we ran it was with another company, and that worked really well. The feedback we got from that was the veterinarians and veterinarian staff said, we never get an opportunity to let our hair down as a group. And so for them, it was a fabulous night. And we're trying to make this again a fabulous night for vet staff. And we're looking to get around about 400 people attending. We decided to do this very similar to what we did last time. It's a cocktail event, so it's not a sit-down dinner. We wanted to do that because what I often allow people to do is to
Easier
walk
talking.
around, talking to each other, have a look at the auction. So we've got a silent auction and a live auction as well. We've got some fabulous items for both of those. So we're getting some donations from people for the auctions there. And there will be, I think there's going to be a 360 photo booth. It's going to be a bit of fun. And we want people to let their hair down. There'll be a DJ, I think, on the dance, and they'll be dancing on the dance floors, things like that. So, yeah, and you can go to Sophie's Legacy, so sophieslegacy.com. And if you go to the website and just scroll down, I think it's the second article there where you can actually click on and book if you want to go. So that is a major fundraising event, because one of the things that we did learn when we got this external group doing assessment of Sophie's Legacy is that we needed to be better at generating funds. So that's a really important fundraiser for us. You talked about pause for
Pause for Sophie calendar, which
that's right.
I literally just found out. So I couldn't even put the pugs in. I think the cutoff is off, but you can still buy it.
You can.
Or vote. No, it's
what's
voting.
happening there is, and what I want to say about this too, Donna, is that this is Alira, and Alira is actually a photographer in Sydney, and she has some really close friends who are veterinarians, but she wanted to do something for the industry. And so she said, I'm going to actually do a competition where people can send in their best photographs of their pets, and then other people can then vote for the top photograph of their pets. And I understand she's going to take, I think it's 13 of them, and she's going to create a calendar from that.
Yes.
And where she will go out and do professional photographs with the 13 winners, and then they will become part of the calendar for, I imagine, 2026.
Yes.
So that's raising money for us, but we've got so many others that we get so many from the community who want to raise money for us. So I can tell you that Ryan is going to be doing the Mongolian Monkey Run.
Oh my God.
Now, the Mongolian Monkey Run he's going to Mongolia. They're going to get on these little 50cc bikes, and apparently they're going to go through the desert. I think they've got to map their own way. And I think it's around about 12, 14 days. He's decided that he's going to raise money for Sophie's Legacy through this adventure that he's running. So that's another one. And I could go on lots of them. We've got the Australian College of Veterinary Nurses at the moment that are raising money for us by when vet nurses decide they want to do a course, they're going to contribute some of that money that they pay for the courses will come to Sophie's Legacy. And then we're getting corporates that are getting right behind Sophie's Legacy as well. We do want government. We're working on that at the moment to see if we
Which is
so we're
hard
talking to
work.
New South Wales government. We're also talking to, in South Australia, we were lucky enough to initiate the joint committee that's looking into the veterinarian mental health and wellbeing. So Sophie's Legacy, through our advocacy, actually got that up and running, which was fantastic.
Yes.
And they will report towards the end of this year, as I understand it. And hopefully there'll be some really good actions. Hopefully there'll be some legislation changes that will improve conditions. Hopefully there'll be some funding for some educating. And as we've been talking about, there's still a lot more work to be done there. So, so there's lots of things happening from raising money, because if we don't do that, unfortunately, we won't survive. So that's one
Mm.
of the things that we've got to be looking at.
No, it's an unfortunate byproduct of getting the word out there is that to get the word out there, you need money to do it, to be able to reach all of
Yeah.
Australia, not just your local community.
I was just going to say, Donna, interestingly enough, when we ran the We're Only Human campaign, we actually got people from the US, Canada, UK, Switzerland, New Zealand. They actually said to us, can you please run this in our country?
I'm
Because
not
they said it's
surprised.
very powerful. And they said, we've got the same problem. So this
Yeah.
problem is not unique to Australia. It's a
Mm.
worldwide problem. And so we could, and we're not big enough to actually run that, although we're having a meeting this week with someone from the UK to see how we could be supporting each other. So yeah, and we are a national group. So even though we're based in Adelaide, we are national. And so, to get our message out, this does cost money. So, we're very conscious that we want most of that money to go into our projects and not much money into the admin side of things.
Mhm.
But that's why we actually have to do all this work to get and raise money. And as I said, we've got huge support from the veterinary community in supporting us to raise that money, because they know that they're getting some value
Mhm.
out of that.
No, improve working conditions, how could you
Yeah.
say no? Now, the other people can donate. So if Sophie's legacy has resonated with the average pug parent out there, you have the $33 campaign, which I thought was also
Yes.
awesome.
Yes. So that's our Little Things campaign. So we launched this in March this year. The Little Things campaign was really saying to people, it doesn't take a lot to help us to make a huge impact. So that might be, and we decided $33 because that was the number of years Sophie was here with us. And so we said you can do $33 per month. You could do it once a year, but it's only a little thing, but it actually can make a big difference. So they can still contribute towards the Little Things campaign. And even if they go to the sophieslegacy.com website, you can either donate up at the top, or you can actually look for the Little Things campaign and donate that way as well. So yeah, so there's a number of ways in which we're looking for support, not only from the veterinary community, but from the general community as well, because they benefit from this as well.
Absolutely. A happy vet means a happy pug or
Absolutely.
dog.
Yeah.
So probably the last thing is we've talked about so much, but there is so much more on your website. I know when I was researching, I was going down rabbit holes and I thought, oh my God, well, I need to drag myself back out. So how can we find you've mentioned the website,
Yeah.
sophieslegacy.com, but socials, where can we find you there?
Okay. So, and in fact, we've had a very strong social media campaign. I'll mention Selga. She does a fabulous job of that. So we have one on LinkedIn, so you can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. We do have a TikTok, and we also have a YouTube, but we're not. I don't think we're getting as much traction on that. Instagram, Facebook, you'll see a whole lot of posts, and the posts vary a lot. For example, we 2 years ago actually challenged on the Logie red carpet. I don't know if you heard about this.
Ah.
On the Logie red carpet, there was a live interview where the comedians from Colin from Account had a go at veterinarians, and it was left as though a very negative comment. It was actually meant to be, again, it was a comedian trying to be funny, but in fact, the message that was left
Fell
was a
flat.
perception that was wrong. We called it out. And in fact, fortunately, these people came back and they apologized. They said, we didn't realize there was such a high suicide rate. It's something we didn't really mean. It was meant to be done in jest, but we can understand that it was. So we got an apology from them, which was great. Also, the National Bank had a campaign, which was a national campaign, which had some negative stuff about vet prices and stuff like that. We challenged them. They withdrew the whole national campaign. So often we'll use our social media to actually challenge the misconceptions that are out there. And at the same time, talk about all these wonderful vet communities that are raising money for us and helping them to get noticed so that people can actually donate. So our social media is really top notch. And I suggest, I wish I knew, I don't know if we can do this, Donna, but maybe we can actually just have the handles that you need to be able to find them. I
All
might
of
be able to
that
set.
is in the podcast comments
Oh,
area.
fantastic.
So the links they usually do work. I say that they will, and then of course they won't. But no, all of the handle links are in the comment show notes. So
Fantastic.
all they need to do is flick
Yeah.
up and click
And look, one other
follow.
thing, yeah, one other thing, Donna, is that we do now have a database where we're keeping people's email addresses and we're sending out an electronic mail every now and then to keep people informed. So again, you can actually go on Sophie's Legacy
Right.
website and register to actually be on that database, and then you're going to get updates on a regular basis as well. So we're trying to do it for the oldies like me, Donna,
Not
for
so
that
technologically minded.
who like emails, and then for those people who like Insta, and for those, and I'm a LinkedIn man, so we get a lot of good kudos from that as well.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Gary, and for talking about a subject that is very near and dear to your heart, but also probably like me, still makes you choke up when you talk about it. So thank you very much for giving us your time to talk about such an important subject.
Donna, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I hope people enjoy what we've talked about and will actually help us out in the future.
Definitely. Sophie's legacy isn't just about remembering one incredible woman. It's about building a kinder, more sustainable future for every vet, every nurse, every receptionist who looks after our pugs. You can find out more, sign the petition, or support the campaign at sophieslegacy.com.au. And don't worry, we've popped the links in the show notes to help you out. And hey, next time you're at the vet, a simple thank you or a kind word can go further than you think. I know I will be doing it the next time I'm there. If this episode moved you, please share it with a fellow pug parent and pop over to our Facebook group, the Pug Life Show Podcast, and share your thoughts on this incredibly important work. Plus, if you haven't already, please follow the podcast so you don't miss out on the next episode. And while you're at it, leave us a review. It only takes a couple of seconds to give us a 5-star review, and it goes a long way to helping other pug parents find us. Rosie, Kenji, Buster, and I hope that you will join us again soon. But until then, have a pawsome week, and humans, be generous with the snackies.